The Kelaris border rift was the quietest region in explored space. No trade routes. No colonies. No wars. Only darkness stretched between the dying stars, broken occasionally by drifting asteroid fields and abandoned observation stations. Most captains avoided the sector because long-range scanners behaved strangely there. Entire fleets had reported phantom readings before disappearing into the endless void. That was why Commander Ril Taven nearly ignored the alert. He sat inside the bridge of the Union patrol cruiser Valaris, staring lazily at a half-finished report while the crew monitored another uneventful shift. The reptilian officer beside him yawned. "Probably another sensor ghost," she muttered. Then every screen on the bridge suddenly went black. The room froze. 1 second later, alarms erupted everywhere. Massive gravity distortion detected. Unknown fold space rupture forming dead ahead. Crew members grabbed their stations as the ship violently shook. Outside the viewport, space itself began twisting unnaturally. Blue cracks spread through the darkness like lightning tearing across glass. Commander Taven stood slowly. "That's impossible." The rupture expanded wider. 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 Then something emerged from inside it. At first, only shadows appeared. A gigantic silhouette slowly pushed through the collapsing fold space gate, blocking entire fields of stars behind it. The crew stared in stunned silence as scanners struggled to process the object. The numbers appearing on screen made several officers think the system was malfunctioning. 31 kilometers long. 7 kilometers tall. Heavily armored. Power levels beyond anything in Union records. The ship looked less like a vessel and more like a moving fortress forged from black steel. Massive blue energy lines pulsed beneath its hull like veins carrying lightning through metal flesh. Along its surface were thousands of visible weapon batteries large enough to destroy capital ships individually. The bridge became dead silent. Commander Taven whispered the words nobody else could say. "That's a warship." A terrified navigation officer shook his head. No civilization possesses engineering on this scale. Then the unknown vessel moved. Slowly, deliberately, like a predator entering hunting grounds. Across nearby sectors, hundreds of listening stations instantly picked up the same signal. Emergency transmissions flooded Union space within seconds. Unknown supervessel DATSCTAD. All FLEETS respond immediately. Inside the Galactic Senate on the capital world of Elysium Prime, representatives from over 300 species watched the live feed in horror. The gigantic black warship drifted silently through space, while analysts desperately tried identifying its origin. No known fleet matches the design. Energy output exceeds a planetary defense grid. Could this be an ancient precursor vessel? Then a communications officer interrupted loudly. "We've translated the hull markings." The Senate chamber went completely silent. A silver symbol appeared across the central holographic display. A globe wrapped in flames. Below it were 4 words written in ancient Terran language. United Earth Defense Fleet. Confusion instantly exploded across the chamber. "Earth? Impossible. Humanity is extinct." But older senators looked terrified instead of confused. Because they remembered the stories. 2 centuries ago, humanity vanished after the Sol Wars, a catastrophic conflict so destructive that entire systems were erased from star maps. Survivors claimed humans fought like creatures possessed, sacrificing planets just to stop an unknown enemy from spreading across the galaxy. After the war ended, Earth disappeared. And humanity was never seen again. Until now. Back aboard the mysterious warship, rows of armored officers worked calmly beneath towering holographic battle displays. Unlike the panicked Union fleets gathering nearby, nobody aboard the vessel appeared nervous. At the center of the bridge stood Admiral Elias Mercer. Tall, gray-haired, scarred. His cold blue eyes studied the tactical screens, while thousands of incoming alien ships formed defensive positions around them. An officer approached carefully. "Sir, Union fleets are targeting us." Mercer remained calm. No hostile action unless fired upon. Yes, Admiral. Another officer turned from his station nervously. Sir, they think we're here to invade. For a moment, Mercer said nothing. Then he looked out through the massive front viewport at the frightened alien armada surrounding them. They should be afraid, he said quietly. Suddenly, every alarm on the bridge screamed at once. Red warning lights flooded the command deck. New contacts detected. Reading multiple cloaked vessels directly behind us. The holographic display expanded rapidly. Hundreds of unknown ships appeared from invisibility. Dark, jagged, covered in glowing crimson markings. Mercer's expression changed instantly for the first time. Not fear, recognition. One horrified whisper escaped his mouth. No, they found us. The space behind the Titan warship UEF Dominion Tor opened with silent precision. Hundreds of cloaked vessels revealed themselves at once. They didn't enter like normal ships. They unfolded from invisibility, sharp skeletal structures peeling out of dark space, as if reality itself was shedding skin. Across Union fleets, panic spread instantly. Unknown fleet detected. They're surrounding the human vessel. Targeting solutions are unstable. Commander Ril Taven, still watching from the patrol cruiser Valaris, felt his throat tighten. The new ships looked wrong, too thin, too sharp, too alive. Their hulls weren't metal in the traditional sense. It looked more like bone fused with machine. Crimson energy pulsed through their structure like veins. Then a transmission burst across every channel in the sector. It wasn't translated. It was understood. Humanity will finish what it started. The voice was layered, multiple tones speaking at once, like thousands of minds crushed into one signal. Inside the Galactic Senate, chaos erupted. What is that? They're speaking directly into neural receivers. That's impossible technology. But Admiral Elias Mercer on the Dominion bridge didn't move. He only stared at the enemy fleet forming a half-circle around his ship. His hand tightened slightly on the edge of the tactical console. An officer stepped forward nervously. Sir, do you recognize them? Mercer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned away from the viewport. And for the first time since the ship emerged, his voice carried weight that silenced the entire bridge. The Vadran Swarm. The name alone changed the atmosphere. Confusion spread among younger crew members. A tactical analyst quickly pulled ancient archives. Seconds later, his face went pale. Sir, the Vadran Swarm is classified as extinct. Mercer gave a cold laugh without humor. So was humanity, he said. The holographic display shifted automatically as the enemy fleet began powering weapons. Massive energy cores lit up across their ships, forming red geometrical patterns that bent light around them. A junior officer whispered, "What are they?" Mercer finally turned back to the viewport. "Not ships," he said, "a plague that learned how to fly." The swarm fleet moved forward. Union vessels began forming defensive lines, but their commanders hesitated. They weren't sure if they should protect the humans or retreat. Then the first swarm cruiser fired. A red beam tore through empty space and vaporized a Union escort ship instantly. No explosion, no debris, just absence. The message was clear. This was not negotiation. This was extermination. "Return fire," Union commanders shouted. But before any fleet could react, the Dominion moved. Not slowly, not cautiously, instantly. Its massive hull rotated slightly, revealing a long structure along its spine. Panels shifted open like mechanical petals, exposing a glowing core of compressed blue energy. Every sensor in the sector screamed. "What is that power level?" "It's off the scale." Inside the Dominion bridge, Admiral Mercer gave a single order. "Spinal cannon, unlock." Entire sections of the warship lit up as ancient systems awakened. The ship itself seemed to wake up, as if it had been waiting centuries for this moment. Union fleets watched in shock. The human Titan-class warship was not defensive. It was built to end wars. The swarm fleet surged forward. Mercer didn't flinch. Fire! A beam of pure blue-white energy erupted from the Dominion's core. Space distorted instantly. Stars bent. Gravity cracked. The blast tore through the swarm formation like a divine blade, erasing dozens of vessels in a single sweep. Entire ships vanished before their shields even registered impact. A stunned silence followed across all Union channels. Then whispers erupted everywhere. One ship did that. Impossible. But the victory lasted only seconds. The destroyed swarm vessels did not remain destroyed. Their fragments began pulling back together. Metal reversed itself. Energy reformed. Dead ships rebuilt their bodies from nothing like living organisms refusing death. Commander Tavan stared in disbelief. They're repairing themselves. On the Dominion bridge, Mercer's eyes darkened. They always did. Suddenly, alarms erupted again. Boarding craft detected. Multiple impacts on lower hull. Explosions rocked the Titan warship as swarm vessels collided directly with its armor, not attacking from range, infecting at close contact. Inside the ship, metal screamed as something tore through external plating. Then came the worst part. Internal life signs began disappearing. One by one. An engineer shouted, "Sir, they're inside the ship." Mercer's face hardened. "Seal all outer decks." A young officer froze. "Sir, there are still crew down there." A long pause. Then Mercer spoke quietly. "That's why we seal it." Massive blast doors began slamming shut across entire sections of the Dominion. And deep inside the ship, something started knocking back. The knocking inside the Dominion was not random. It was rhythmic, controlled, like something learning the ship's structure by listening to its bones. Boom, boom, boom. Each impact echoed through sealed corridors as reinforced blast doors bent inward under impossible pressure. Emergency lights flickered red across lower decks, casting long shadows through smoke-filled passageways. Commander Ril Tavan watched in horror from his patrol cruiser as internal Dominion feeds were broadcast to all Allied fleets. What they saw made trained soldiers go silent. A Union Marine sprinted through a corridor, weapon raised, breathing hard. Behind him, something moved in the darkness, too fast for cameras to focus on. Then the Marine suddenly stopped. Not because he chose to, because something had reached him. A thin metallic tendril pierced through his chest from behind. No blood spray, just sudden stillness. The Marine dropped his weapon, then slowly rose again. But his movements were wrong. Too smooth, too synchronized. His eyes glowed faint crimson. Commander Tavan stepped back instinctively. They're converting them. Inside the Dominion bridge, alarms escalated into full system panic. Biological contamination detected. Crew loss increasing. Containment failing on deck 12 through 19. Admiral Mercer stood motionless, watching the situation unfold. His face showed no panic, only calculation layered over something older. Memory. Pain. An officer approached him urgently. "Sir, if this spreads to engineering, the ship will lose propulsion." Mercer didn't respond immediately. Instead, he spoke quietly. "Then we don't let it reach engineering." Another explosion shook the lower hull. Entire sections of the warship groaned under structural stress. Then came a new sound. Not knocking. Not screaming. Something dragging itself upward through ventilation shafts. A junior officer whispered, "Sir, they're adapting to the layout." Mercer finally turned. "Of course they are." He tapped a command into the console. Deep inside the Dominion, hidden systems that had not been activated for decades began awakening. Massive vault doors beneath the ship unlocked one by one. Red warning text flashed across every screen. Iron Reaper protocol, authorization required. An officer froze. "Sir, that protocol was banned after the Sol Wars." Mercer's voice dropped lower. "So was survival." He pressed his palm against the authorization panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire ship vibrated. Deep mechanical groaning echoed from hidden chambers as ancient machinery restarted after centuries of silence. On the Union fleet channels, confusion spread. What is happening to the human ship? Energy signatures spiking inside their hull. Is it self-destructing? But Commander Tavan noticed something different. The Dominion wasn't breaking. It was opening. Massive internal vault doors slid apart like waking giants. Steam and blue light flooded corridors as rows of towering figures were revealed. Human silhouettes, but not normal soldiers. These were enormous armored beings, over 8 feet tall, standing motionless inside suspension frames. Black combat armor covered their entire bodies, etched with glowing circuitry. Their helmets had no visible faces, only faint blue eye slits like cold fire. Each carried weapons that looked too heavy for normal physics. Magnetic rail cannons, antimatter blades, gravitational disruptors, the Iron Reapers. Commander Tavan's voice shook. What are those? Mercer answered quietly. Humanity's last mistake. Inside the lower decks, swarm-infected corridors suddenly went silent. Then every camera feed flickered. A single Reaper unit stepped forward. Its armor locked into place with a mechanical scream. Then it spoke through a distorted comm channel. TARGTS confirmed. All at once, every Iron Reaper activated. And the Dominion became something else entirely. A warship that had just unleashed its buried demons. Down below, the swarm creatures stopped moving for the first time. Because they had just realized. They were no longer the hunters. They were inside a human graveyard that had just started waking up. The lower decks of the UEF Dominion stopped feeling like a ship. They felt like a tomb opening from the inside. Every corridor light flickered in sync with distant mechanical roars echoing through sealed sectors. The Iron Reapers had fully activated, and the ship itself seemed to react like a living organism remembering violence. Commander Ril Tavan watched the live feed from his cruiser in stunned silence. One Reaper unit stood motionless in a collapsing corridor. Swarm-infected soldiers rushed it from both sides, former humans twisted into half-machine horrors. They attacked without hesitation. The Reaper did not retreat. It simply raised its rail cannon. A single pulse fired. The corridor behind the target ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, just a clean erased line through space. Tavan whispered, "That weapon deletes matter." Inside the Dominion bridge, Admiral Mercer monitored the spread of the swarm infection. "Containment status?" he asked calmly. An officer hesitated. "Failing in sections 21 through 33, sir, but Reapers have engaged." Mercer nodded once. "Then they won't reach the core." A violent impact shook the ship. Then another's. Then another's. Something massive was moving through internal ducts now, no longer infiltrating but hunting. Suddenly, a new alarm erupted. Unknown mass signature DETCTED lower core. Every screen shifted. A towering creature emerged on internal cameras. It was no longer just swarm infantry. It had evolved. Its body was enormous, twisted layers of armored biomass fused with ship plating it had absorbed. Its limbs dragged along corridors, scraping metal apart like paper. Hundreds of glowing eyes opened across its head as it processed the ship around it. It wasn't invading anymore. It was adapting the Dominion into itself. A junior officer stepped back. "That thing is growing inside us." Mercer's expression darkened. "Then we remove it." He activated a second command. Deep within the Dominion, the Iron Reapers received new orders. Breach confirmed target. Elimination protocol absolute. Commander Tavan leaned forward as the Reaper squads advanced. The Iron Reapers moved through burning corridors without hesitation. Swarm creatures attempted ambushes, but the Reapers reacted faster than human perception allowed. Every encounter ended instantly, rail cannons tearing through reinforced bone-metal hybrids, gravity blades slicing entire enemies apart mid-charge. But the deeper they went, the worse it became. The swarm wasn't just fighting back. It was learning. One Reaper suddenly paused. Its helmet tilted slightly. The swarm had started copying their movement patterns. Inside seconds, enemy units began mimicking Reaper tactics, predicting angles, countering shots, adapting in real time. Commander Tavan felt a chill. They're evolving during combat. On the Dominion bridge, Mercer saw it too. His hand tightened. They always did. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. A massive internal explosion tore through Deck 18. Alarms screamed. Core breach approaching engineering. An officer shouted, "Sir, if they reach engineering, they can hijack the reactor." Mercer stood slowly, then gave an order that silenced the entire bridge. "Activate Iron Reaper Omega." Every officer froze. "That unit is sealed, sir. It's unstable." Mercer didn't look away from the tactical display. "So is losing the ship." Deep within the Dominion, the deepest vault cracked open. Unlike the other Reapers, this chamber was not lined with rows. There was only one armored figure suspended in a gravitational containment field. Its armor was darker than the rest. Its weapon larger. Its presence heavier. As systems powered up, the containment field slowly shut down. The unit stepped forward, and the entire ship felt it wake up. Even the swarm creature inside the hull paused. For the first time, afraid. Commander Tavan's voice dropped. "What did you just release?" Mercer finally answered. "The thing we built to end the last war." A pause, and swore never to use again. The Omega Reaper turned toward the lower decks and began walking. Not running, not rushing, because it already knew. Everything inside the ship was about to die. The Omega Reaper's first step shook the Dominion like a small impact event. Every deck above it vibrated in delayed shockwaves, as if the ship itself was reacting in fear. Lights dimmed along its path, not from damage, but from systems voluntarily shutting down to avoid what was coming. Commander Ril Tavan watched the live feed, unable to speak. The Omega Reaper didn't move like the others. It flowed. Each step was silent, yet the corridors around it bent slightly, gravity responding to something the sensors couldn't fully measure. Ahead, swarm creatures flooded the passage like a tide of corrupted flesh and metal. Dozens, hundreds, their glowing eyes locked onto the new threat. For the first time, they hesitated. Then they attacked anyway. The Omega Reaper raised its weapon. No sound, no warning. Just a single pulse of black-blue energy. The entire corridor vanished. Not destroyed. Erased. Where the swarm had stood was nothing, an empty tunnel stretching into darkness, as if reality had been carved away. Tavan whispered, "That's not a weapon, that's a boundary break." On the bridge, alarms escalated. Structural integrity unaffected in erased zones. Physics readout unstable. Space is missing in affected corridors. An officer looked at Mercer in disbelief. "Sir, what did we create?" Mercer's voice was quiet. "A correction." A massive impact shook the ship again. The swarm's central bioconstruct inside the Dominion was still growing. Now it filled multiple decks, its form pressing against bulkheads, reshaping corridors into organic tunnels. And it was learning faster. Every Reaper tactic it observed was being replicated. But when the Omega signal reached it, it stopped evolving. For half a second. Then it changed direction. It began fleeing. Commander Tavan froze. "It's retreating." Mercer's eyes narrowed. "No," he said slowly, "it's reporting." Suddenly, every swarm ship in the sector reacted. Across space, dormant fleets awakened at once. Thousands of vessels lit up like dying stars reigniting. Entire systems went dark as the swarm redirected all attention toward a single target. Earth. Inside the Dominion, panic began spreading among Union officers. "They're converging on Sol. Millions of ships inbound. We can't hold that." But Mercer didn't react like a man seeing disaster. He reacted like a man confirming inevitability. "Good," he said. An officer turned sharply. "Good." Mercer walked toward the tactical viewport. "We didn't wake the Omega to win this fight." A pause. "We woke it to start the real one." Deep within the Dominion, the Omega Reaper continued forward. The swarm bioconstruct surged toward it, now massive enough to crush entire ship sections. It slammed into the corridor like a living mountain of teeth and machine. For the first time, something on the Dominion didn't die instantly. It resisted. The Omega Reaper stopped and slowly tilted its head. Commander Tavan felt something cold in his chest. "Is it struggling?" On the bridge, Mercer gave a single command. "Full authorization, end it." The Omega Reaper lifted its arm. But instead of firing forward, it pulled. Space around the swarm construct began collapsing inward. Not explosion. Implosion. The creature screamed across every frequency as its massive form folded into itself, crushed by forces that ignored physical structure entirely. Decks buckled as gravity inverted in localized zones. The Dominion groaned under the strain. Even Union fleets outside detected it. What is happening inside that ship? Then it ended. Silence returned to the lower decks. The corridor was empty again. But now there was a hole. Not a breach. A void where multiple decks should have existed. Commander Tavan stared in disbelief. It deleted part of the ship. On the bridge, an engineer shouted, "Sir, the Omega field is destabilizing hull geometry." Mercer nodded. "I know." Another officer stepped forward urgently, then shut it down. Mercer turned slightly. "No." A pause. "The swarm is no longer inside this ship." He looked toward the stars. "It's everywhere else now." As if responding to his words, the long-range sensors lit up. Thousands, then millions. Swarm vessels emerging across the galaxy like waking nightmares. All converging toward Sol. The Omega Reaper stood still in the dark corridor. Its mission complete inside the Dominion. But outside the ship, the war had just begun, space outside the Dominion filled with movement. Not normal fleet movement. This was something far worse, like the galaxy itself had started to bleed ships. Swarm vessels emerged from hidden graveyards across multiple sectors at once. Dead systems lit up like infection spreading through veins. Entire patrol fleets vanished before they could even report contact. Commander Ril Tavan watched the incoming data stream in disbelief. "They were everywhere," he whispered. "We just didn't know it." Inside the Galactic Senate, panic had fully collapsed into chaos. Species that had never agreed on anything were now screaming over evacuation protocols, defensive coordination, and survival treaties that meant nothing against numbers this large. One analyst shouted, "We're seeing convergence from all recorded swarm hives." Another replied, "No, this is worse, they're merging roots. They're thinking as one swarm again." The word again made several older senators go pale, because it implied they had been separated before. Inside the Dominion bridge, Admiral Mercer stood in front of the tactical display as the entire Sol system expanded into view. Earth, the blue dot at the center of everything. The final destination. An officer stepped forward nervously. "Sir, Allied fleets are requesting orders. They want to form a defensive line outside the system." Mercer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied the data. Millions of swarm ships. No hesitation. No diplomacy. Only direction. Then he spoke. "No defensive line will hold that." Silence followed. Another officer whispered, "Then what do we do?" Mercer finally turned. "We stop thinking in lines." A pause. "And start thinking in extinction events." The Dominion's engines roared to life as the Titan-class warship moved forward alone, breaking formation from the Allied fleet. Behind it, Union vessels hesitated. Commander Tavan's voice came through a secure channel. "You're going alone." Mercer replied calmly, "We're not alone." He looked toward the empty black space ahead. And for the first time, sensors picked up something new. Hidden mass signatures began appearing across the outer Sol system. Not swarm. Human. Tavan's eyes widened. What are those readings? Inside the Dominion, new signals activated automatically across forgotten channels. And then, space around Earth began to unfold. Massive structures emerged from cloaked positions that had been inactive for centuries. Hidden shipyards, silent defense moons, orbital platforms the size of cities. Then came the ships. Thousands of them. Human warships. Not like the Dominion. Smaller, faster, more brutal. They had been waiting behind Jupiter, Saturn, and the asteroid belts like a cage tightening around the solar system. Every alien fleet watching the transmission went silent. They had all this, one senator whispered. Mercer's voice echoed across all channels. Humanity never left Earth undefended. The hidden fleet began powering up in unison. And then the sun itself reacted. Solar activity spiked unnaturally. Massive energy conduits hidden in the corona activated, structures built so close to the star they were invisible until now. A new weapon system came online. The Helios Array. Commander Tavan felt his breath stop. They built weapons into the sun. On the Dominion bridge, Mercer gave a single command. Prepare for convergence. Then alarms screamed across every fleet in the galaxy. Swarm arrival confirmed its Sol boundary. Contact in T-minus 60 seconds. The stars at the edge of the solar system began to dim. Not because they were dying, because something was passing in front of them. A wall. A living wall. Millions of swarm ships entered the system at once. And the silence that followed was worse than anything before it. Mercer stared at Earth, then spoke quietly. Now we see if the galaxy survives what it woke up. Moment the swarm entered the Sol boundary, space itself felt heavier. It wasn't just a fleet arrival. It was a pressure wave of existence, millions of ships compressing into one coordinated consciousness as they crossed the system threshold. Every human sensor platform inside the outer belt lit up at once. Then went dark. Commander Tavan watched as the first human defense line activated near Neptune. Sleek warships unfolded from cloaked positions like blades being drawn from invisible sheaths. No hesitation. No warning shots. Just instant coordination. Human fleet integrity holding, an analyst reported rapidly. They're reacting as a single network. Across all channels, alien commanders watched in stunned silence as humanity's hidden armada revealed itself fully for the first time. Not scattered. Not defensive. Structured. Layered. Built like a trap. Then the swarm struck. The outer human screen line vanished in seconds. No dramatic explosions, no last transmissions. Just disappearance under overwhelming force. Commander Tavan clenched his fists. They're being erased. Inside the Dominion bridge, alarms echoed nonstop. Outer grid collapsed. Swarm penetration into inner orbital lanes. Jupiter defense perimeter compromised. But Mercer didn't move. Because he wasn't watching the outer lines. He was watching the inner system. And waiting. Then it happened. Jupiter lit up. Massive orbital platforms hidden in its shadow activated simultaneously, releasing energy beams that cut through swarm formations like surgical strikes. Entire clusters of enemy ships disintegrated instantly. Then Saturn responded. Its rings were not rings anymore. They were weapon arrays. Laser lattices fired in rotating patterns, carving paths through the swarm like a spinning execution blade. Commander Tavan's eyes widened. They turned the gas giants into fortresses. But the swarm adapted. Always adapting. The destroyed fleets began reorganizing mid-flight, forming new geometries that reduced damage efficiency. Their collective intelligence recalculated attack vectors within seconds. Inside the Dominion, a tactical officer shouted, "They're learning our planetary defense layout." Mercer finally spoke. "Good." The officer blinked. "Good." Mercer's eyes remained fixed on Earth. "Let them learn the surface." A pause. "Not the core." Suddenly, a new signal appeared across all systems. Deep beneath Earth's crust. Ancient. Dormant. Then awakening. Commander Tavan froze. "What is that signal under the planet?" Mercer's voice lowered. "The reason we never lost." Far below Earth's oceans, massive structures began rising from the mantle. Not cities. Not ships. But something older. The ground split across continents as hidden megastructures unfolded upward. Gigantic defense pylons emerged like steel mountains. Entire oceans displaced as gravitational anchors stabilized massive planetary weapons. Then the final system activated. The core shield. A planetary-scale energy barrier ignited around Earth, forming a translucent sphere of golden light. The swarm reached it seconds later. Impact. The entire system shook. Not from destruction. From resistance. The swarm crashed against Earth's shield like a tidal wave, hitting an immovable wall. Commander Tavan whispered, "It's holding." Inside the Dominion, Mercer exhaled slowly for the first time. For now. Then alarms erupted again. Swarm secondary wave detected. 3 times initial fleet size. Approaching faster than previous wave. Space behind the first swarm formation split open again. More ships. And more. And more. The galaxy itself looked endless now. Commander Tavan's voice cracked. "How many of them are there?" Mercer finally turned away from Earth and faced the incoming storm. "We're about to find out why humanity built monsters," he said quietly. The Dominion's weapons powered up fully. Every hidden human fleet in the system followed. Even Earth's surface weapons aligned upward, all targeting the same horizon. The incoming darkness. Then Mercer gave the final command for Phase 2. All units open fire. And the solar system became a battlefield of light and extinction. The solar system stopped feeling like space. It felt like a collapsing warfront made of light, gravity, and screaming silence. When Mercer gave the order, every human weapon in Sol answered at once. Not in sequence. In unity. The outer defense fleets fired first, thousands of coordinated beam strikes carving through the incoming swarm wave. Jupiter's orbital platforms followed, launching sustained energy lances that ripped clean corridors through enemy formations. But the swarm did not break. It flowed around destruction like water around stone. Commander Ril Tavan watched in disbelief as the second wave crossed Neptune's orbit. The numbers were no longer readable. The tactical display simply showed one overwhelming truth. Infinite contacts. Inside the Dominion bridge, alarms had stopped sounding properly. There were too many signals for systems to classify. An officer whispered, "We can't even count them anymore." Mercer stood still. His face was calm, not because the situation was under control, but because it had reached the point where control no longer mattered. "Helios array status?" he asked. A technician responded instantly, voice tight. "Charged to 70%, but the swarm density is interfering with solar channel stability." Mercer nodded once. "Push it anyway." The technician hesitated. "Sir, if we misfire, we could destabilize the sun's corona." Mercer's reply was immediate. "Then we win faster." A heavy silence fell across the bridge. Outside, Earth's planetary shield continued to absorb swarm impacts. Cracks of golden light spread across its surface like fractures in glass under pressure. The planet itself was holding, but barely. Then the swarm changed strategy. The third wave stopped attacking fleets. It ignored them entirely and moved directly toward Earth. Commander Tavan felt his stomach drop. "They're bypassing everything." Mercer's eyes narrowed. "Because they finally understand." The swarm wasn't trying to win space. It was trying to erase origin. Earth, the human homeworld. Inside the Dominion, emergency alerts screamed. Swarm direct convergence ON planetary shield. Impact inbound seconds. The entire bridge braced. And then, the swarm hit Earth's shield. The shockwave lit up half the solar system. The planetary barrier bent inward for the first time, glowing brighter and brighter as it absorbed impossible force. Oceans below shifted violently. Storm systems collapsed and reformed. Commander Tavan whispered, "It's going to break." Mercer didn't look away. Not yet. Then something unexpected happened. Deep inside Earth's crust, the hidden core systems activated fully. The shield stopped bending and pushed back. For a brief moment, the swarm wave stalled completely. That single pause changed everything, because it gave humanity time. Mercer slammed his hand onto the command console. Helios array full ignition. Every solar installation synchronized instantly. Deep within the sun, structures older than the Dominion itself awakened. Massive energy conduits aligned through the corona, drawing raw stellar power into a single focal point. The sun flickered. Once, twice, then ignited in unnatural symmetry. Commander Tavan stared at the readings in shock. That's not a weapon, that's the star itself being redirected. Mercer's voice was quiet. "No," he said, "that's humanity finally answering." The Helios array fired. A beam of golden-white light erupted from the sun, not traveling like a normal weapon, but existing across distance instantly, rewriting space between origin and target. It struck the swarm center mass. For one frozen second, everything stopped. Then reality broke. Entire swarm formations began collapsing simultaneously, not exploding, but dissolving into raw particles as the Helios energy rewrote their structure at a fundamental level. Commander Tavan's eyes widened. "It's deleting them." Wave after wave of swarm ships vanished under the light of a dying god turned weapon. But even as destruction spread, the swarm core remained. Deep within the mass, something enormous still existed. Not a ship, not a fleet, a consciousness, and it was watching Earth. Inside the Dominion bridge, alarms slowly faded into low warnings. The immediate pressure had dropped. But Mercer didn't relax, because he knew what survived. Commander Tavan looked at him. "We did it, didn't we?" Mercer's answer was slow. "No." A pause. "We just woke the part that doesn't die in light." Far beyond Jupiter, the surviving swarm mass began to reform. Slower now, heavier, more deliberate, and for the first time since the war began, it sent a message. Not across ships, across minds. Every human, alien, and machine intelligence in the system heard it at once. "We remember you, Earth." Mercer stared at the darkening battlefield. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Then remember this too." He turned to the bridge crew and gave the final order. "Prepare for the Second Sol War."